Israel said Sunday would not allow any more goods to enter Gaza over what it called Hamas's refusal to accept a proposal to extend the expiring initial stage of the ceasefire and hostage release deal and threatened additional consequences and a return to war. So that's exactly right. But the real question is, why has Hamas been receiving any aid at all until this point? This is not an organization that any civil person would want to associate with. Why would the H group even be given any rights? And how can a country be expected to win a war against a brutal, horrible organization such as Hamas and and be forced to feed them? In what world is that an idea of how to bring them to their knees to end this and to get all the hostages back? It's completely backwards, and it doesn't make any sense at all. So we have to question from the beginning how this ended up being the established status quo and why it's taken this long for Israel to really cut this off. But it's important to note that according to Israeli sources, it's going to be 4 to 6 months worth of gear has gone into Hamas's possession. 4 to 6 months worth of food supplies, fuel, and food, which is obscene. So you have a group that's starving its hostages, that doesn't care about the lives of innocent civilians, and is now, has 4 to 6 months worth of runway in which they can continue to keep their grip on Gaza and keep, and not be pressured in the same way, which is utterly preposterous. It's completely and totally utterly preposterous. And then you have these groups of people like the United Nations that have been funding UNRWA, that have been funding organizations that actually participated in October 7th or had their employees participate in aspects of October 7th. And instead of siding with Israel, they're now claiming that it's a human rights issue, which is on its face obscene, because it's alarming that the only way that aid can get into women and children in Gaza is through Hamas. That is in itself alarming. The UN relief chief Tom Fletcher said Israel's decision to halt aid into Gaza is alarming. International humanitarian law is clear. We must be allowed access to deliver vital life-saving aid. We can't roll back the progress of the past 42 days. We need to get aid in and the hostages out. The ceasefire must hold. Israel has asked that the hostages be released, and Hamas is not letting that happen because they know that that's their only leverage. So just the concept that this is how it would be addressed is patently absurd. And I want to start here also playing. They had yesterday Dr. Bassem Naim, the infamous Dr. Bassem Naim. It's important that we turn to him and see exactly what he's talking about. It's quite revealing when we actually see and we understand exactly what the H group is planning here.
Let's now bring in Bassem Naim, who's a member of Hamas's political bureau, joining us via Zoom. Mr. Naim, welcome to Al Jazeera. Could you first of all briefly make the Hamas position clear on precisely where we're at with the negotiations on phase 2?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have signed a deal on January 19th, which is composed of 3 phases. Phase 1, 2, 3. Each phase is 42 days. According to this deal, we have to start the negotiations about the second phase on day 16 of the first phase. Until now, the Israelis are refusing to engage in the negotiations of the second phase. Therefore, they are greatly violating the deal and endangering the deal and exposing the deal to fall apart.
Okay, let's also mention that the H group has actually fired a number of rockets toward Israel. A lot of them have actually landed in Gaza, and the way in which the H group has been dealing with hostages is also in complete violation of the ceasefire. So let's just be very clear when he's spinning here what's true and what's not true. It's very important.
And they are threatening, by the way, directly or indirectly, publicly or secretly, that they might go back to war and to continue their prevention of allowing a lot of basic needs, which is part of the deal, especially in the first phase, to enter the Gaza Strip. I think the Israelis are planning to escalate again. Despite we have said it many times, we are committed to the deal. We have done.
Okay, this knucklehead has said that he would like to do October 7th again and again. It was actually him that said this. So let's be very clear when we're talking about committing to a deal and what you see as a path towards peace.
And already our duties according to the deal, and we are ready to continue implementing the deal according to what we have signed on.
To what you've agreed already. All right, so you say that you believe that Israel is planning to escalate again, but is Hamas happy to move on to phase 2, even though at this stage Israel hasn't fulfilled its phase 1 obligations, like allowing shelters into Gaza and drawing down on troops?
Yes, Israel has violated the deal in many aspects, as we have said it many times. Until now, Israel has killed more than 100 Palestinians. They have prevented most of the basic needs to enter the Gaza Strip. They have.
This is not true. There's been hundreds of trucks a day providing humanitarian aid to the H group, Hamas, and other people in Gaza. And I think there's a pretty legitimate case to make that they shouldn't allow aid to get into the hands of Hamas, but they have done so thus far. So let's just be very clear about what's going on and the lies that are being spread.
Delayed the release of our prisoners many times. And
Hamas gave over the wrong body instead of Shiri Bibas. So they delayed the release of prisoners as they were trying to absolutely confirm that it was not Shiri Bibas. And let's just be clear, when he talks about the need or the challenges, that's the source of it.
And endangered the whole deal. But despite of this, we have conveyed a clear message to the mediators. We are ready to go for the second deal or to negotiate the second deal based on the signed agreement, and we are committed to this deal, but we cannot accept to go for the end of the first phase, which is next Saturday, without being engaged or involved in negotiations about the second phase.
So just to clarify there, to make absolutely clear, what you have just said there is that Hamas is ready to move on to phase 2 at this point.
Yes, we are ready to move to implement the deal according to what we have signed, especially on Saturday. This is the last day of the first phase.
He's talking about yesterday. Of course, this is, today is Sunday, March 2nd. So when he's referring to Saturday, he's referring to yesterday.
Without being involved or engaged in a second phase negotiations, which has to start on day 16. And this is a very a very dangerous sign that the Israelis are planning to sabotage the deal and to escalate again.
Do you feel that Hamas has conceded too much for too little in return?
If you look what the Israelis have done according to in the first phase, yes, the Israelis have. I understand. I understood the question that you are talking about the deal, not the whole battle.
Yeah, no, for the deal. 7. I mean, releasing all civilians, but which is what you have done. But Israel has not stood by its side of the bargain, and now we're in this.
No, they have not. There are still innocent civilians that are still being held. So just on concept that that's what happened is not what happened. In fact, Hamas even brought 2 hostages to a release, had them watch it, and then put them back into tunnels.
The Israelis
Situation
have
where
violated the
phase
deal.
2 is in doubt.
Yes, the Israelis have violated the deal many times, but at the end, our main goal is to reach an end of this war, a permanent ceasefire.
What the heck is a permanent ceasefire? So I'm not saying you have to be best friends, but what is a permanent ceasefire? So you don't have a peace agreement. You can't live side by side. The objective stated goals of Hamas are to eliminate Israel. And then Israel is supposed to agree to a permanent ceasefire. And if that is not an oxymoron, then I'm not sure what the word means.
Total withdrawal of the Israeli forces and to start the rebuilding process of Gaza Strip. If we achieve these 3 goals, despite of all of what happened, I think Hamas is still committed to the deal.
Donald Trump, the US president, has called for Hamas to leave Gaza completely. If this is a key condition for the reconstruction of Gaza, what's your reaction to that? What do you say to that?
I think this is not a question at all. This is not a starting question at all because Hamas is representing the vast majority of Palestinians. Hamas is part of the social fabric and the political arena of the Palestinians.
If this is true, then how can anybody defend what it means to be Palestinian? Because if this is actually the case, and you have a horrible group that is seeking the destruction of the state of Israel at any cost and wants to, unalive Jews, I'm not really sure how you can support any part of Palestinianism if they are part of the social fabric and widely supported by civilians.
Hamas is not a foreigner or an immigrant like Trump himself, who.
So then why are the Gazans receiving aid from UNRWA, and why are they classified as refugees if this is their native homeland and they're not leaving where their quote unquote home?
Whose grandfather came to America from Germany. We are part of this land. This is our homeland. We are not ready to leave as all other Palestinians, not only Hamas members or leaders. And there is a lot of options to rebuild Gaza without committing a war crime or crimes against humanity.
So again, Hamas is not really in a position to advise anybody on what is a war crime and what is not a war crime. Just be clear there.
By ethnic cleansing 2 million Palestinians from their homeland.
Okay, finally, Mr. Naim, technically on Sunday morning.
All right, we've had enough of this fool, but let's just be clear here that the H group Hamas completely delusional, and they're spreading all sorts of insane conspiracies that have no basis in reality. It's a positive thing that Israel has stopped now giving aid to Hamas. How else is Israel possibly going to weaken them and create any sort of gap between the leadership being in Gaza and having an alternative leadership? It's impossible if you continue to feed the beast that is Hamas. It's absolutely impossible. It needs to stop.